Hi everybody, I'm Joe.
And I'm Mary.
And we're Book Buds. So today I have a story for you, Mary.
Okay.
All right. So when I was a kid growing up in my hometown, we had this this food truck on like the side of the road that overlooked the Hudson River.
Okay.
It was a really nice spot. And when I was like really younger, I knew that whenever we reached that food truck that we were almost home because it was like a minute from home. Right? We never stopped to eat there.
Oh.
We just
I was
didn't
going to say,
do that.
was it good food?
We just didn't do that in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like we just it was just there.
Yeah.
Right? But it was kind of like a landmark
Okay.
for everybody in the town. So then the early 90s have come. And I'm like, how old am I? 9, 10. So I'm a little kid. Okay? And we hear this news story that the owner of the food truck found something in his garbage cans.
Ooh.
Somebody dumped something in his garbage cans.
Okay.
So they were always doing that. They were always like dumping stuff in his garbage cans. He would get mad. So this one particular day, he's like, I'm going to go through this bag and I'm going to find like hopefully an address or something. And I'm going to go
And dump it back on their lawn.
dump it back on their lawn.
Uh-huh.
Well, when he got through the first and second and third garbage bag, there was a human head staring up at him.
Oh.
Okay.
Had this happened many times? Like, could he have had other human heads?
No, just the one.
Okay. Oh, one's enough.
Just the one. And arms.
Oh.
Okay, so hearing this as a 9-year-old, 10, like we were scared. Like me, like
Yeah.
it was like scary to hear that. Like you think that like there's a killer on the loose coming to come get you, right? So it was like scary, right? So like it was just like a weird moment, and like once in a while, like growing up, I still talk to my friends that I grew up with, and like we would mention it, like, do you remember that story or whatever? But like I was young, I wasn't watching the news, so I didn't follow up on the story. So like it's just like this weird, scary memory.
Okay.
Which leads us to today's book.
Is it about this scary memory?
Yes. So my friend Steve, thank you Steve for giving me this book. This is about the last call killer. Okay, this was a serial killer.
A real life serial killer.
In New York City.
That dumped a body by your food truck.
Yes.
Okay.
Many bodies.
Oh.
All over like the area. So this is a Last Call by Elon Green. This is just so interesting to me. To read this book now, like I have to be honest, like I was like, because the book, okay, so this guy is a journalist who wrote this book, right?
Okay.
He came across this story, and like this is not well known. Like, everybody knows Summer or Son of Sam, right? The serial killer that happened in New York and all these other famous serial killers. This is really not well known. Okay, even I don't really know of anything really about it. This serial killer was targeting older gay men in gay clubs in New York City and killing them and dumping their bodies all over the place.
Wow. How many people did he kill?
Like in this serial killing spree, like I think it was like 6 men.
Okay.
6 men. So he would go into New York City at the end of the night, hence Last Call, when everybody was drunk, and he would choose his victim and then take them, and they would go home together or whatever, and he would kill them and then cut their bodies up and dump. Like he dumped one in Hershey, like near Hershey Park. The other one was in Bergen County somewhere, or down by the Jersey Shore, and then the other one was like in my hometown.
Did he pick them all up in New York, or did he pick them up in? So he did, and then
all in the village in New York City. So so there are a few interesting things about this. So anyway, my first point was when I started reading this, like they're describing the murders. And I was just like, I mean, you know how many thrillers I read, and they're all graphic, and I'm fine. This made me sick to my stomach. Like, I was nauseous, and I was like, I just had this weird feeling because I remember those horrible memories as a kid being scared about this.
Yeah. Like, could I end up in a garbage bag?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horrible. Oh, and then they found his torso and his legs further, like, not far from me as well, and I never knew about that.
They spread it out.
He spread it out.
Oh, it's disgusting.
It's
terrible.
Horrible. So this happened in the late 80s, early 90s, right at like the start of the AIDS crisis. And so I'm not stating any of this to be, I'm not making a statement, but in the book it said that like because of who the victims were, it wasn't really investigated to too thoroughly because it was like gay man.
Lack of interest.
And like the journalists didn't really cover it because of who the victims were. So like it was kind of like under the radar, right? And they really did not do a full investigation for years. I'll get to that in a little bit.
Wow.
So this journalist, like I was saying before, came across this story, and he really wanted to give those victims like tribute. He wanted us to like know them. So a large portion of the book is about those poor men who were murdered and like nobody really talked about or cared about. And so that was like a nice part of it.
Okay.
Right? The killer wasn't really mentioned that much, which is good. Like I can't even remember his name.
I feel like you don't want the killer to be like promoted in something like this. Like
right. So that's just very interesting to me. Also, okay, so these black plastic bags that he tied his bodies up into, like he would do 3 and 4 at a time. Oh my God, so interesting. So like right around the time like new technology was coming out for fingerprinting, like a new process. Okay. So the first time when they investigated, like nothing, they couldn't get any prints off. But like I'm saying years later, like almost a decade later, this new technology came out and they finally like reopened this case.
Do they still have the bags?
Okay, so I was so pissed off because my county was the only county who did not like store the bags properly and probably just like forgot about them. It was like impossible to get anything from those bags.
Wow.
But Bergen County and Pennsylvania, they did what they were supposed to, and that's how they finally got him.
I'm impressed. I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah, and I was pissed. I'm like, God,
come
on, my county. Like, Jesus, that's terrible. So apparently this guy was not very careful because they pulled so many prints from those bags.
Wow.
Years and years later. And he committed a murder, like, when he was younger in college. His college roommate was going through his things, so he bashed him over the head with a hammer and then put a bag over his head. He got off on this, Mary. They did not charge him for this murder because they said that it was self-defense. But then they were like, it's not self-defense if you put a bag over his head, like the hammer, maybe. But it's not. But he still got off. But this was in Maine. They kept, even though he was not like charged for the crime, they kept his prints on file, which is like, not every jurisdiction does that. Okay. But this one did, and that's how they matched him.
Wow. Yeah, I don't want to read this. It's terrible. That's very sad.
So, you know, I mean, if you like true crime and you like that kind of a thing, this is very interesting. It's, you know, set in New York City and around. So it mentions a lot of clubs and bars in New York City that people might know. So it's pretty interesting on a lot of fronts. But
was it well written?
Yeah, and it was, and I like how he focused on the victims. Yeah, it was a good book.
All right.
Yeah, it's just I have such feelings about it, you know.
Yeah. I imagine you need to do something to repair after that when you're like feeling all creeped out and everything and scared.
I went straight to my fairy tales.
Good.
I'm reading my fairy tale series now. So.
It's like the Band-Aid to put on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, what do you think about that story?
Intense book, intense story. Yeah. There's bad people out there.
Yeah. Scary. So, again, thank you, friend Steve, for recommending this book to me.
It's like, how do you sign out now?
I know.
Like, Book Buds!
I know. This is like so horrible and depressing. We couldn't do a scene for this. Remember I said?
You're like, there's no scene for today. I'm like, okay, I'm wondering why.
No scene. Can't do that.
No.
There's like nothing to pull from this whatsoever.
No, really not cool.
No. Well, thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing. Wow.
I appreciate your support.
Intense history.
If you're enjoying Book Buds, give us a thumbs up.
And share us with your friends.
And subscribe to our channel, Book Buds!
This one had me shivering in my boots. I was so scared.
So I had a dream about you last night.
You did?
Yeah. So for some reason, I was driving your car. I just got in the car, and I was like, I don't really want to drive. And I'm in the driver's seat, and I'm like, do you want to drive? And you're like, yeah, sure. So I take the steering wheel off, and I pass it to you. And you stay right
You're reading a lot of fantasy books.
And you're just like driving, and I'm doing the brake and the gas, and I was like a little poorly coordinated. But it was, you were driving. So
that is so funny.
Thanks for helping out.
Magical steering wheels. I love it.
I know, right?
I wish it was that easy.
Why did I dream that?
That'd be cool.